Hello, and welcome to I Am Dad podcast with your fatherhood authority, Kenneth Braswell. 30 minutes of wisdom, information, resources, and nuggets to help you on your fatherhood journey. Or maybe you're just curious and want to hear some real talk about fatherhood, family, and the minds of men. Well, guess what? We got you too. Sit back, grab your pad and pen, and maybe even bring a little something to sip on. Enjoy 30 straight minutes of fatherhood, family, and fun with the fatherhood authority, Kenneth Braswell.
Welcome to I Am Dad podcast. I'm your host, Kenneth Braswell. Thank you for joining us for another episode of great conversations, great insight, great wisdom. I'm having such, it's hard to describe because I was talking to someone the other day about this podcast. And I said that to a certain extent, although I'm talking to, great people around the country, that to an extent that it is somewhat therapeutic for me because it allows me to kind of hear the voices of others, get some insight on their various interventions and attributes to this work itself. And it's kind of really helped me in my own thinking around the work that we've done. This gentleman that we're going to be talking to today is one of those individuals. He is Rob Kenney. He's a man who's turned his personal story of hardship into a beacon of hope for millions. Rob grew up facing the painful reality of being abandoned by his father at the tender age of 14. This profound experience sparked a promise within him to ensure his future children would never endure such pain. Fulfilling this promise, Rob not only became a devoted father to his two children, but also extended his fatherly guidance to the world through his YouTube channel, Dad, How Do I? At a time when the world was grappling with the isolation of the pandemic, Rob stepped up as the internet dad, teaching essential life skills and sharing heartwarming life lessons with those who were missing a father figure in their lives. With millions of subscribers, Rob has shown that fatherhood transcends biological ties, touching hearts with his simple yet powerful message of love and guidance. Today, we dive into his journey, the impact of his work, and the lessons he continues to share with the world. Welcome, Rob, to this conversation about resilience and fatherhood. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's a pleasure. I've been in this work for 20 years. There's almost no one that I don't know who's been doing this work. So anytime I come by someone who's doing something significant, it's like a quest that I have to meet them. I have to know them. I have to bring them in my space. And I think that this podcast has done that for me in spaces that probably would not have happened with my head down in this work. And so I was really excited to see your work because it complements a piece of work that we're trying to build as well. And we'll talk about that deeper into the show. Rob, always when I start my show, I start off with this simple question so that it gives the audience a sense of who you are and really what drives you to do what you do. And that question is, tell us your daddy story.
Yeah, so the main reason I share my dad's story is and I just shared that actually on my Instagram today, it's a redemption story. My dad unfortunately chose to leave when I was 14. He started out well. I'm one of 8 kids, and so I'm number 7. And everything started well between him and my mom. And I won't get into all the details. You could read them in my book if you want to know more. But it turned into a tough situation with my mom and my dad up here in Seattle. The original family started out in Kansas, and then work dried up for my dad. He moved us to New Orleans. He was worked for Boeing, and he moved us to New Orleans for the space program, and that's where I was born. And then we ended up in Seattle. And so my mom was unplugged from her family and her support group. She was one of 12 kids herself. And so she envisioned, I think, that, she was going to grow up, all of us kids are going to grow up among all of her relatives, and kind of have this big, tight community. Unfortunately, she got completely unplugged with that. So that took a toll on her. And again, long story short, their marriage took a toll on their marriage. And My mom struggled with anxiety. She turned to alcohol, and so she kind of went downhill pretty quick. My dad ended up getting custody of us, and when I was about 12 or 13, he got custody of us, and my mom was considered an unfit mother, so she wasn't able to take care of us. And my dad got custody of us, but it seemed like by that point, he didn't really want us anymore. He had met another woman, and by that time, the older siblings were out of the home, but us younger siblings were still there. And my dad came home when I was 14. Actually, let me back up a little bit. So when he had custody of us, he would load us up with groceries. This was the 70s, so it was a different time. He'd load us up with groceries and be gone for a week. And then he'd come back on the weekend and load us up with groceries and then be gone for a week. So we were just kind of fending for ourselves, looking back, it's amazing that we just kind of, went into survival mode where I guess this is just our new normal now. And then he came home when I was 14 and said, and it was for a birthday party or something of all things. And we were at the house. And so I heard this. He came home and said, I'm done raising kids. Either the older kids are going to have to take in the younger kids, or I'm going to put them in foster care. And that was pretty tough, 14 years old, you're going through puberty, going through questions about your manhood, all kinds of different things. And so it hit me pretty hard. I struggled with that for a long time. And I actually kind of shared in the intro, I vowed at that time as a 14-year-old that I was going to be the best dad that I could be, as a 14-year-old who I didn't know what I didn't know. And so, it's hard. Being a dad can be hard. It's, you've got temptations, you've got distractions, you've got all kinds of things pulling you, wanting to get you away from your mission. And so thankfully, here we are today that I made it through. I raised my wife and I, I'm married well. I've been married for 33 years and raised two good adults. I try to encourage people to raise good adults. We don't want to raise good kids. You need to raise good adults so that they can fend for themselves, get out there and be all that they can be. I think that's, And so I feel like I'm grateful for the opportunity that I have now to be able to share a lot of knowledge along the way that I learned a lot of it the hard way. And so, that's kind of it in a nutshell. I don't know if I skipped over anything or not. I was trying to keep it brief, but also have it make sense.
Yeah, no, it's all good stuff. I love starting with individuals telling their story because I think that for those folks who listen, to the podcast, either today or somewhere in the future, that when they begin to listen to a specific podcast, that for the guests who's speaking and even myself, that they may be able to find themselves in the person that they're the person that they're listening to. Or they may be able to connect with something that a person is saying that resonates with them, or it may unlock an answer to a question that they don't know how to ask, or they may not know where to ask, right? And I think that storytelling does that. I think that when you tell stories, the wisdom that is encompassed in the midst of a story can unlock, the struggles that an individual may be going through, known and unknown. That's what's so important about daddy stories, right? Because sometimes we can be impacted by daddy wounds and don't even know that's what it is. You think it's something else, and it's not. It's not until you give some deep thought that you find out that wound that you're struggling with is a wound that someone told you doesn't exist. That's why you can't understand it. When you, it also, based on what you said, gives me some insight on, why you chose that, how do I, because it seems like that is the lingering question, right? As adults, when we look back for the question that was unanswered by our fathers, right? Which is, how do I, right? That's what we show up for. That's what dad should show up for, to make sure that their children are not left with that particular question on as least things as possible, right? And so take us back to the moment that you have the epiphany that, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start this YouTube channel and I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to call it Dad, How Do I? Tell me about that moment.
Yeah, real quick too. I have to mention forgiveness because it's such an important part of the story. I did kind of skip over that. I struggled with unforgiveness with my dad for the longest time, and I'm a man of faith, and so I it was through tears and just a lot of struggle to be able to forgive him and move on. I uh, I remember hearing the quote though that unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping it somehow hurts the other person, and it was killing me. I didn't realize that. I thought, oh, I need to hold this over my dad's head, and so I needed to be able to let him go. And once I did, there was freedom for me on the other side. And so a big part of my channel, I share Wisdom Wednesdays as well, and not only just how to do things, but also try to pass along some quotes that mean a lot to me. And I I just think it's important to live your life. Meanwhile, your life's passing by. If you're harboring unforgiveness, it's energy you're spending on something that's in the past that you can't do anything about. You can acknowledge it and learn from it, but you can't do anything about it. And so let it go and live the best life that you can. And that was me. And so that's why I share it, because there was freedom for me on the other side. So now I just wanted to make sure to say that, because I never want to come across like I'm bashing my dad or airing dirty laundry. I share that so that people, it's a story of redemption, and that to try to encourage people to forgive, because none of us are perfect and people are going to make mistakes, including yourself. You need to be able to forgive yourself with some stuff as well.
Mhm.
So
Before you answer that question, though, because I want to insert this, because I think it's a perfect place to insert this, and we'll get back to that moment, right? But listening to you, one of the things that I hear you say, and I just had this conversation with someone specifically about this work and working with, or working within the space of fatherhood, right? And more specifically in the space where father absence is having an issue or creating issues for children. One of the things, Rob, that I always say in my work is there's no such thing as a fatherless child. 100% of all biological children on the face of this earth has a father. The question isn't if he exists. The question is where he exists. And if you never answer the question, or if you never ask the question, where is he, you make the assumption that he doesn't exist. The problem with that is we tell our children that their fathers don't exist, and because they believe that he doesn't exist, they never look for an answer that gives solution or resolution to the hole in their heart left by their father. It is because their father exists that they have so much traumatic responses to not having them, and we do our children an injustice when we speak to them in ways like when we speak to them in ways that make them believe that their fathers don't exist. And so part of that is in this space of faith, and this is where we were having this conversation. And what I was saying is that in order to do this work, and in order to work with individuals around this level of pain, that they have to have, you and the people that you serve have to have a level of faith. You have to believe in something, right? And for me, that core belief is that we know that all things work together for the good to them who love the Lord and according to his purpose on our lives, right? And so what that allows us to do is it allows us to look at not only the good things that happen in our lives, but look at the bad things that happen in our lives and make sense out of why the bad things happen. I think that for you and I, 100 years down the line, when we walk up to the pearly gate, God will make sense out of it all. But I think the one thing that he will say is, I know some things that I had you go through were hard, but you were built for it. And you were built for it because there was this good thing that you needed to do, that you did as a result of that. And everybody could not handle that, but you could. And because of that, you got that burden to create that particular calling. And so I love the fact that you're a man of faith, because I believe that in order to do what you decided to do, it took that level of faith to know that you can do that, not having what we would describe as the blueprint to be able to do it.
Well, that's well said. You're much more well spoken than I am, Ken. So I did share today, again on my Instagram about my story. Is it made me who I am today? If that had that not have happened, that's who I am, and I think I have a level of empathy for people that I otherwise wouldn't have. And it does drive me. My faith drives me because I understand that I have a limited time on this earth. But I'm not fearing death because of what Jesus did for me. And so I'm just doing the best I can with the resources that I've been given, and with the burden I've been given, to try to pass along what I know, to try to help people in this life, but ultimately try to point them to eternal life. Because I think that that's ultimately, if everything else is a Band-Aid in our society, I feel like a lot of times, put your best foot forward, get out there and suck it up. Well, there's going to be struggles in this life. This life can be tough. And we're basically told that by Jesus, that you will have tribulations, but, take heart, I've overcome the world. So that helps ground me. I would be a wreck, Ken, if I didn't have my faith. I would be, because money and fame, and I've seen it destroy people. And I still have we still drive the same used vehicles. We live in the same home. My wife and I have tried to keep normal lives for ourselves. And a lot of my neighbors, I'm not even sure they even know what has happened to my life. I've just tried to keep that such a low profile, because I want a normal life, so to speak. And yet I still want to continue to impact as many people as I can, to try to ultimately point them to, if you've maybe grew up in the faith and abandoned it or whatever, because that was me. I was raised Catholic and I walked away from it completely. And then, was kind of challenged to, hey, you might want to reconsider this. And I realized I was throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I was like, I saw putting up a straw man and knocking him over. Instead, I had to start looking at the reality of faith, and who I'm putting that faith in. And Jesus rose from the dead. Jesus conquered death and came back to life. And if he didn't, we're of all men most to be pitied. If that didn't happen, however, that did happen, it's everything. It's everything. It's everything. And that's what I'm counting on. I'm counting on Jesus claiming who he said he could be trusted. So that's anyway, that's what keeps me grounded. So all that to say, let's move on here to the.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, this conversation is made to be had, right? I don't think that any conversation that takes place is wasted conversation.
Okay.
Because we never know who's listening and who we're going to impact. I am, Rob, when I first started doing this work, I used to look outside of my own space at people who seemed to be impacting more people than I was impacting, right? Bigger churches, bigger organizations, people who were well funded, had more resources, seemingly in my space, or based on how I was seeing it, was having greater impact. And I used to always have this feeling that, why not me? How come I can't be able to speak to that many people? And how come I can't do this? And how come I can't do that? And one night I was praying about it and asking God, please God, give me more resources, connect me with greater people, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going through this. And he just very quietly, as he always speaks to me, said, speak to the sheep that I've assigned to you.
Mm.
Right. And basically what it meant to me was stop wanting to speak to sheep to which you're not their shepherd, right? Only speak to the ones, because there may be one amongst your sheep that's going to go on and do something tremendous, and I need them to be able to hear what you have to say. And you don't want the burden of what those other shepherds have, because something comes with that.
Mhm.
right? Being admired by millions and millions and millions of people, right?
Yeah.
And so everybody has their own assignment. And when I got that revelation, Rob, that be comfortable in your own assignment, speak only to the sheep that hears your voice,
Mm.
stay focused on that which is in front of you. I stopped paying attention to anything that was going on around me. Like, I don't pay attention to what other people are doing, what other people are saying, how God is blessing other people, why he's blessing other people, how he's blessing other people. All of that stuff doesn't matter at all, because the only thing that matters is me adhering to the assignment that I was given.
Mm. I like that. Yeah, I think because we can get our focus off for sure. There's so many distractions, that, well, maybe you should be doing that or you should be doing this. No, I think I'm doing what God would have me to, what he would have me to do. And that's what I'm so grateful for on my channel. Again, I'm not just showing how to's. I'm trying to walk alongside people and give them, some courage, and ultimately, again, point them to where they can find true courage and true meaning for their lives. Uh, yeah, so my channel is all over the place. I give money talks and all kinds of different things. I'm grateful for it. We had this guy actually from Atlanta, Mike Lycona. Are you familiar with him, Mike Lycona? He's a theologian. He was at our church this last weekend. Solid guy. He has a website called risenjesus.com, I think. But yeah, anyway, it's just I don't know. I can't remember where I was going to go with that, but shoot, lost my train of thought. But anyway, it's cool to see people just kind of doing they're speaking to and not staying in your lane, so to speak, but doing, talking about different things that God has called you to do. And then you can rest in that, because you don't have to feel like you have to be all things to all people. You can just kind of, I'm just trying to be the best that I can. I know what I said to him. He's a very learned guy. And I told him when I introduced myself to him, I said, God gave me this platform. And there's oftentimes when I'm praying that I'm like, why'd you choose me, Lord? You could have chose somebody way smarter, way more eloquent, way more better at these things. But for some reason, you have given me this platform, and I'm just trying to be faithful to you and do the best that I can. So, and he said, what Mike said to me, he's very, very smart when it comes to digging into, why the New Testaments are reliable and all this stuff. And he said, he put you there because I can't do those things. He said, I can't do those things. This is what I do. That's what you do. So I was like, well, that's encouraging. I guess I can kind of rest in that. So anyway, we should probably get back to the the
Yeah,
actual
let's get to this moment.
original
Let's
story.
remind our listeners what we were talking about
Yeah.
before we went this way, right? Which was the moment that you decided to start Dad, How Do I?
Yeah, so I came up with the name actually, Dad, how do I? Because I pictured one of my kids in the other room saying, Dad, how do I? And then I'd come running in and fix it. But I'm so grateful that the channel is so much more than just fixing things around the house, like I shared. I'm grateful for the platform that I've been given. I thought of doing the channel several years prior to actually posting. And one of the things that really hit me was our visit to Rome. My wife and I went to Rome, and we were there. And you walk around Rome; it's amazing. It's an amazing city, but it's a shell of what it once was. It was the center of the universe, basically back in the day, back in Jesus' time. It was Rome, and now things are crumbling. The Colosseums, they're restoring it now, but the Forum, everything's just basically ruins. And it really it impressed on me, wow, things are fleeting. You have, you're here for a time and then you're gone. And that's, you see these statues that are crumbling too. And so I had thought, how can I, what I do now? Because my kids are kind of, my wife and I did well. We raised good adults. They're out of the home. I'm still fairly young. I got a life. Lord, what would you have me to do? And so that was all kind of all coming together. And then I was procrastinating when I thought of the name or thought of the channel. And then finally, my daughter, when the pandemic hit, my daughter was like, Dad, you need to do this now. People would really probably resonate with it because of what we're all going through. I think they just want to hear from a regular guy. And so we have her to thank for where we are today, because she kept pushing it. And I was like, well, I am at home. I don't have anything else to do. I'm kind of stuck at home like everybody else. So I thought, well, I can do how to tie a tie. That's easy enough. So I did how to tie a tie. And then I did how to shave your face. And I thought I was going to have 30 or 40 followers. I've shared that over and over again, and I'll stick by it, because I thought I was going to have this tight knit community of, I'll answer all your questions. You comment, I'll get back to you, and we'll kind of, we raised our 2 adults, and now I'm going to help raise another 30 or 40 adults, so to speak. I guess that's kind of what my thinking was. My vision was way smaller than what it is today. And then I started my channel April 1st of 2020, and then my first upload was April 2nd. So April 1st, April Fool's, jokes on me that this thing is what it is. But then I had probably about 10 videos up is all. And then it went viral. Reddit got a hold of it. Facebook got a hold of it. It just went I went from where my wife and I were walking out, early on, walking our dog, and I'm looking at my phone. I go, oh, I just got another follower. That's pretty cool. And then 2 months later, I'm like, I'm at 600,000 followers. What is going on? And then, oh my goodness, it's 1 million, and now it's 2 million, and we're almost 5 million now. So it's crazy. The flip side of the fact that my channel went viral is the fact that it's so needed. And so that, if you can get your head around that a little bit, it's a little heartbreaking that it is so needed, because it's not just United States. I've been on interviews, pretty much you name it, all across the world. Indonesia recently, and then Australia early on, Sweden, Germany, Brazil. You pretty much name it. I've been on an interview in pretty much every country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you that's a good I'm curious, like when you are in other countries and they are speaking to you about the work that you're doing, I'm sure that many people that are asking you to speak about fatherhood and speak about your experiences, that it's almost or they are almost trying to answer a question for themselves, like they're trying to solve a Rubik's cube. Like when you're interviewing with people, like what's your sense that people are really what are they trying to get at?
Yeah, I think it's all over the place. Honestly, there's definitely been the one in Indonesia was a young man, and you could tell that it had touched his heart personally, and so he was getting teary eyed even just talking to me about what I do. So I think it really varies. I think it'd be hard to say exactly what they're looking for. I think a lot of it is, we need some wholesomeness in this world. We're on TikTok, and our attention spans are shortened down to, a gnat's, So I think it's, I talk about this a lot. I think we long as people for community, and we long for wholesomeness, and yet we settle for fast food. We long for a home cooked meal, and we settle for fast food, and we do it to ourselves over and over again. You're hungry. It'd take me about an hour to cook a nice home cooked meal. I can just whip into this drive through. I got my food, and then I'm fed. But you don't feel good afterwards. You feel like, I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that? But we do it, and we do it over and over again. It's our human nature to do that. And so I think people are longing for something wholesome, and somehow to be connected to that and maybe get a piece of it, because we're so thirsty for it, I think.
Hmm. What is it about your own personal life that feeds into some of the things that you want to teach other people? Is that part of your creative process? You start looking back on the things that you wish you would have gotten an answer for, and it's like, that was a hole for me. I'm gonna fill it for someone else.
Absolutely. So that's part of where my content comes from. Part of it comes from, I'll just even today going, that would be a good one to show. But also, different money type of stuff. I remember struggling and just getting, grabbing a piece from this person and learning, I didn't know that. Okay. And then store that away and store that away. And so I'm trying to just not waste people's time by giving them nuggets that I think are valuable to help you navigate your life. But a lot of it does come from, yeah, my backstory of I learned how to tie a tie from my 19 when I was 19 from my roommate. And I talked about paying attention to the knot because that's what he said. And he taught me well. So, and I said, you don't want a big knot and a short tie because that's dorky. You want to, you want your knot or your tie to come out about your waist, and you want a decent sized knot. You don't want it to look so. All that to say, and I've shared this a lot. I was just interviewed yesterday. We had a film crew here, and they were talking about different things. And I just said, I think we can learn just about anything from anybody. It doesn't mean you have to emulate everything else about them, but everybody's got a little nugget that you can, I'm going to take that for myself. I'm going to take that for myself. And I think that that's valuable if you can look at that. I think, unfortunately, in our society, we've kind of gotten to this point where we've built walls and I can't learn anything from these people, but I can only learn from these people. Well, you're limiting yourself then, because these people, you may not believe everything they believe, but you might be able to get a nugget from that person or a nugget from that person.
Hmm. How have you been able? Because I do think that the term "how to" is an entry point to intimacy and connectivity, right? So whenever you turn to someone and you say "how," right, and then "do I," like that is a entry point to intimacy and connectivity, because once you engage in that, now you're engaging in something that's going to create those two things. How do you maintain that when you're dealing with a virtual audience? How does that come through when you're looking at the folks that are looking at the things that you're doing and you're saying, wow, this is a different level of like intimacy and connectivity that I thought could never happen over the internet?
Yeah, I was surprised by that. Honestly, when I showed how to tie a tie, I thought I was just showing people how to tie a tie. I didn't realize there was be so much connectivity, like you said, and people are crying watching me tie a tie. In my ignorance, I thought I was just showing you how to tie a tie, but they're connecting with me on a different level. I think a lot of that, honestly, is God. I think people are feeling a little bit of God's love in my finite fallen way. They're somehow feeling loved through a virtual screen, and so that's been interesting to try to get my head around that. One thing that I do try to do with my videos, I don't want to, and I'm sure we're similar in age, and so throughout your life, I'm sure that you've had people, you need to learn how to do something, and you've had people come in and show you how great they are at something. Well, I didn't learn a thing. Oh, it's great that you're good. So I try to break my stuff down into baby steps to where people feel like they can do what I'm doing. I'm not trying to show you all my amazing skills, although there are many of those. uh, just kidding. But the reality is I want to encourage and empower and equip people to be able to do this stuff for themselves. That's much more valuable if they can then go do it, and then they can teach others too. And then it just kind of spreads out instead of watching me do something.
Yeah, what is it? What's the biggest theme of things that people are resonating the most with when it comes to how do I? Like what are people looking for? Are they looking for like is it mechanical stuff? Is it philosophical stuff? Like what are people looking for?
I think I'd like to think that they're looking for some of the philosophical stuff and some of the stuff, that means so much more than just solving the problem that you have in front of you. But how to tie a tie and how to shave. I think some of the rites of passage, kind of into manhood, that has resonated big. Although I have followers of all ages, and that's one thing. Early on, my channel kind of got pigeonholed into, oh, he's helping young men. Well, I am helping young men because certain things apply to young men, but I'm also helping anybody and everybody that just needs a calm voice to be able to speak into their lives and try to walk alongside them to fix, your kitchen sink or what have you, or your bathroom sink. So I think there's a lot, there's so much more to it. And I start off my videos by saying, "Hey kids," as a term of endearment, because I think all of us deep down like to hear be called a kid. I think we're all kids at heart. If somebody called me kiddo, I wouldn't be offended by it. I'd think, "Hey, that's pretty cool." So I stick with that. But I have 80-year-old kids. I have it's all over the place. The age, the demographics that watch me.
Yeah, I wondered about that because I was thinking, I wonder how many people watch your videos to pay it forward, right? Because they've never been taught. Like, I'm not trying to learn how to tie a tie because I don't know how to tie a tie. But I got this 5-year-old son, and we're getting ready to go to Easter service, and I brought him a tie, and I don't know how to tie it, and I want to teach him how to tie it. Like, how much of that do you see where people are trying to learn things to pay it forward?
Oh, I've had that. Yeah, I've had that for sure. I've had people say, "Oh, my boyfriend doesn't know how to tie a tie, so I'm here learning how, so I can help him learn how to do it for himself." So I think that's pretty cool. Again, trying to give people the tools to be able to handle situations that come up in their life. This is an interesting side of what's happened on my channel too. Is I get messages all the time, direct messages and emails and you name it, people communicating with me. This one caught me by surprise. I got it probably 4 or 5 months ago from a gal. She had been through a traumatic experience with, I don't know if it was her husband or her boyfriend, but it was domestic violence that she went through, and she actually came out of it with brain damage. And she wrote me to tell me that part of her therapy is to just listen to my videos on repeat as a calming voice to help her kind of rehab. And so obviously there's no way I could have foreseen that my videos would be used that way. And so that was like, wow, that's not something I've heard before. So thank you for the encouragement and praying for you. Yeah, pretty amazing. How could I have foreseen that would be a part of my channel?
What's the thing that you found yourself teaching that you never thought you would have to teach?
That's a pretty good question. I don't think well, one person, or early on, people were saying, "How do I tie my shoes?" And I thought, that person must be joking. I honestly thought somebody was playing with me, that, "Oh, you can't tie your shoes." And so, but then I started getting that question over and over again. And I thought, wow, I guess I just can't assume, if you haven't had somebody and maybe you never just learned properly and you've been frustrated and maybe too embarrassed. And so I ended up showing that one. I've had people say, "How do I change a light bulb?" And I thought, wow, I always just took it for granted that people would know some of that stuff. And so it's tough at times because honestly, I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence. I'm not here to say, "Look how smart I am. I know how to tie my shoes," or something. But the reality is, there's people that are in that situation apparently that just for whatever reason never learned properly.
hmm Do you often get requests for people to help them, particularly parents, right? Because as we talk about the how to's, these simple things that we've never been taught or we had to teach our children. I think the other thing, often in our work, we always say that, there's no manual for parenting, that many of us learn how to parent by how we were parented, right? And some folks don't get good parenting. And so they simply don't. How do I talk to this teenage boy who's driving me crazy right now? How do I talk to this girl who's blah, blah, blah? Do you get any of those kind of parenting how to's?
So I do. It's not really stuff that I've gotten into too much. I am actually going to be starting a podcast myself because I think that there's a need for it from my perspective. And so I'd like to answer more of those questions, but I think up to this point, I haven't really shared a ton about my faith. It's in my book and I say, "God bless you." But I've been kind of vague about that because I do want to be sensitive to people. I'm not here to, uh, preach at you necessarily, but I will share, I think, more in my podcast. It'll give me the venue to be able to talk about those things because I think that that's important. It's such a big part of who I am and how I make decisions, and I see everything through that lens. And so, if you're asking me the question, this is how I'll answer it, right? And I've had people write me and ask me questions, and I'll answer. And I just say, "You're asking me, so just understand this is my how I see things." And then they're, oh, I'll tell them I'm a man of faith and get into it a little bit, and then, oh, I really wish you had they write me back. I really wish you had a better answer. Religion is for weak-minded people. That just happened recently. He says it's for weak-minded people. And I said, well, first, you're calling me weak-minded, so just understand that you're calling me weak-minded, who you're asking for advice. So, and I said, be careful. I said, if you want to go after Christianity, go after the resurrection. If you think Christianity is false, don't go after all these peripheral things. Go after the resurrection, because if that didn't happen, we're all a bunch of idiots. We're all a bunch of fools that are believing this thing. But if it did happen, and so anyway, that risenjesus.com is a great resource for that. If you really want to dive into it, and not put up a straw man and knock him over. Okay, deal with this. I think it's important to look at.
Right. There's got to be some challenges in what you're doing. And whether it's the mechanics of actually, the process of doing the video, learning the video, how you're going to present the video, when you're going to do it, those kinds of things. What are some of the challenges that that you have to?
Amen to that, man. That's a struggle. But I compare it to your own kids. If I did the best I could. Let me put it that way. I didn't always do it, because sometimes you just got to get a job done, right? There might be something that's pressing outside that needs to be handled, and you don't have time to have your kid come out there and explain everything to them. You just need to take care of the problem. And I have that in my own life where it's like, oh, this would make a great video, but I just don't have the time. I got to take care of I got to take care of the problem. And so otherwise I'd have to set up the camera, make sure I'm, taking decent shots so you can see what I'm doing. Then I got to edit it, and then I got to put it up, So yeah,
So am I hearing that you don't have a production crew?
I am a one-man band. I'm shooting on my phone still. My phone with my little tripod.
It doesn't matter what it looks like. It only matters what you're presenting. So listen, anyone with a phone these days can be a photographer or a videographer, if they know how to use the platforms and sound. It makes it really, really easy to do those things. But I'm just cracking up inside because you're speaking my pain. It's kind of like, yeah, this thing, all you guys think is real good. Oh, Kenney, this is a great podcast, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, do you know that I was up until 1:00 last night editing video from like 2 months ago, and I still got a month of videos planned in front of me, and I got a 14-year-old son that's in AAU, and he's practicing every night, and then he's playing all weekend, and then I got this thing that husbands call a wife that has a honey-do list, and I have to do this, and then I got a 2-year-old 90-pound Doberman Pinscher that's a Velcro baby, and I can't move without him being. It's like people don't take that. I always tell people, like, listen, don't get mesmerized by the things I post on social media. Those are my highlights. If you want me to post my lowlights, I could do those too, but you would be totally overwhelmed by that.
Yeah, well, I can relate.
And so I commend you on that. I love people that are their own thing, that makes it look easy, because that's what my wife always says to me. She's like, honey, you make things look easy. And I said, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? She goes, it's perspective. Like, if it's a good thing that you can make hard things look easy. It's a bad thing when people try to emulate what you're thinking, what you're doing, because they believe if you can do it, I can do it, but they have no idea what you're doing because you're not presenting the process of what you're doing. They don't see this sleepness. Like one time, Rob, I was coming from somewhere and I got on the elevator, and oftentimes I get asked to come and do my podcast at a conference, and I'll set it up, and then I'll interview a bunch of people, and then like for a whole month I'll be running interviews that I got from the conference. But I was getting off the elevator. I must have had like 3 suitcases, my backpack, a tripod, and I'm getting off. And these 2 ladies on the elevator, and they go, "My goodness, like where are you going?" And I'm, this is like a 5-story conversation. I'm like, I'm doing this, and I'm on my way back home. I can't wait to get home. And they're holding the door for me to pull all the bags, and I kind of gesture for them to kind of go ahead in front of me. And the lady says, "Where's your phone?" And I thought it was like a really odd question. And she goes, "Where's your phone?" I'm like, "It's right here." She goes, "Give me your phone and turn the camera on, turn the video on." And I gave her the camera, turned the video on, and she goes, "Go ahead and just walk on." She goes, "Because I think that people who don't know what you do to do what you do need to be able to see what you're doing. And like you pulling 3 suitcases, a backpack and a bag is something that people need to see." And I was like, I was so appreciative that they saw that piece of my journey, because the
Yeah.
conference is over, right? Everybody's going home. Now it's the next day. And now I got to go to an airport that's going to take me 3 hours to get to the airport, 9 hours to get home, and 2 more hours to drive home. That's another 12 hours in front of me that people don't know, because they don't see that as part of the video that I just created.
Right.
That's only 15 minutes.
So speaking of that, we had a film crew here yesterday for 8 hours. 8 hours, 9 hours. They're here for 9 hours that they're going to put together a video, which will probably end up being 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And it just, it's a lot of work. I think people just don't realize how long some of these things take. I did a 60-second docs is what it was called. And they did it in 60 seconds, but they were at my house for 8 hours filming all these different things, and then condensed it down and they did a great job. But there's just a lot of work, as you can relate. And then if you're doing your own editing and stuff, it's hard, and making sure that, and then you put it up and like, I forgot that's the one thing I wish I would have included that. And then I'm like, well, it's already up. So
what's next level for you? Where's this going? Like, because I'm sure you think about that, right? Because there is cable, there is TV, there is much bigger platforms, and someone's going to look at what you're doing and say, that could be good for television, cable. Is that something that you look forward to, or something that you're just waiting for God to say go, or you're just going to let it happen when it happens?
I think that's a really good question. I'm trying to figure that out. We've had a couple production companies over the couple of years thinking that it would make good television. I think part of it is I don't have any drama. I'm not bringing, it's not a reality TV show where I'm bringing you drama. And so I think, doing interviews like this and being connected to the right people to where it can spark, I need smarter people than me to help figure that out. And if it comes, great. If not, I do want to do whatever I can. I'm kind of open to anything and everything to help bring back the fact that dads are cool. Being a dad is a cool thing. I don't, if you, as you can, I'm sure you're shaking your head, right? I mean, I love being a dad. It's an amazing part of my life and who I am. And so if I can move the needle even just a little bit to help people recognize, hey, hang in here. This is cool. You'll be so thankful that you hung in there. It's not easy necessarily, but it's so rewarding. And so anything I can do to move the needle in that direction to encourage dads to hang in there. I've shared this a lot before too about, Homer Simpson. While it's funny at times, it can, over time, if you see that enough, you pretty much think, oh, you can start picking on dad. He's a doofus, and then I think when you have Al Bundy, same thing, it's kind of, dads, we need to respect mothers and dads, we're both needed. And so I don't like that. I just don't like what it's kind of in a strange thing to people's minds where they kind of get dummied down to where we've lost respect for dads. And I think if I can move the needle any way I can.
I have to send you the link of a documentary that we did some 15 years ago now, called Perception of Dads in the Media, where we address both those people and others, but specifically Homer Simpson and Al Bundy. And one of the things that I said, I believe I said it in the documentary. It might have been in an interview, and I said we miss the most important aspect of the two of those men, both Al Bundy and Homer Simpson, and that is the fact that they were there.
Right.
Right. Let's talk about that.
Right.
Let's talk about that they were there and that they, in all of the things that make people view this particular show, the one element that is undeniable between them and their children is that they love their children. They might express it in a way that we may not necessarily express love to our children, but it is very clear that both of them not only love their children, but also love their wives, right? And so that's what we want our children to see. How have you integrated your family into your work? Do you find yourself in spaces where it's like, you know what, hold on, let me grab my camera. This is a good moment to get some video of this. Have they become part, of your extended crew?
My wife is. She's helped me make sure I don't have, that the background looks good. Because early on, again, I thought I was going to have 30 or 40 followers. So my shaving video has my prescription bottle in the background. And, she was like, honey, do you know you're, I was like, yeah, I, I do now, but it's up. What am I going to do? And so she makes sure. And so if there is something in the background, it's usually because I went ahead and shot without having her double check that I that I
Hmm.
wasn't doing something I shouldn't be doing.
Hmm. Yeah. What do you do for self-care? What do you do that's fun for you?
What do I do? I work out. I have weights in my garage. I like that. I have my alone time in the morning where I sit and read my Bible. So that's probably everything, more so than anything else. We like to travel and we walk our dogs too. Or walk our dog now. Our other one passed away, so I just have one dog now. But um, yeah, I think that's kind of it. Trying to um, keep things in perspective. I think it's helpful to unplug and kind of just again we just went on a trip. We're going on another trip in April. We're going to go to Greece and kind of we're going to go to Corinth and I'm excited about that, getting to see some of the places that Paul visited, just because our faith is rooted in history too. It's not this pie in the sky thing. This is rooted in history, and I love that. I love history and going back and digging into some of that stuff. So we're going to Greece in April.
Hmm. I know you got to get this because I get it all the time because I'm that guy. I'm in fatherhood that whether I'm at church or I'm out at a basketball game with my kids or wherever, because I'm the fatherhood dude. Everybody who sees me that's got a fatherhood issue is like, "Hey, Kenny, can I talk to you for a minute?" And it's like, I'm really here to see my kid right now. I don't like want to talk. I am sure that when you are out at church or somewhere, it's like, "Hey, Rob, I got a question. I'm building a deck on the back of my house, and I don't know whether I should use a 1/4 inch wrench or like, what do you think? How should I do that? How much of that do you get? And do you have to ever tell anybody, you know what? Right now, I'm trying to focus on this. I'll get back at you."
I do a little bit. Honestly, I try to fly under the radar. I even at church, I don't know how many people know who I am, and so I'm good with that. I just I don't make a bit. My pastor knows, and a few other people know, but I've tried to just maintain my so there's not a ton of people. I haven't been doing this as long as you have, so you're more well known than I am. Imagine in the future that'll probably happen a little bit more. I do have people approach me and want to say hi and thank me. People at Costco or whatever will come up, and so that's been different to try to get used to that, because I want to be approachable and be but it's new to me. I didn't sign up for this, so trying to figure out what is the right response if somebody comes up to me, because it's been awkward, especially early on, because I didn't know, so now I'll usually say, do you got your phone, do you want to get a picture, or to try to take that off of them so they're not left having to feel like they've overstepped. I try to take that away and allow them a chance to be in, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk to you in another year or so when I'm gonna have you back on. I'm like, and you're gonna have like 15, 20, 30 stories of people who had stopped you while you're eating dinner. Like, so how do you decide which fork you're gonna use? Like, because I'm bringing my girl. I know you're gonna have some great stories. And every time that happens to you, you're gonna think of me like, Kenny told me that this is gonna happen. And that was happening. Listen, question for you before I let you go. Um, if you had a piece of advice, particularly for young fathers who are walking into this space and maybe walking into this space without a roadmap with respect to how they're going to show up in the lives of their children, like what would that advice be?
Uh, for me, what helped me again as a man of faith, focus on the family was a huge resource for us that we tapped into, and so I learned a lot of things there about discipline and how to discipline properly because I think it's good to give your kids boundaries. I think that's important because they thrive within that. And I shared this just yesterday again was, if you think about driving across a bridge and if there's no guardrails there, I know myself, I'm scared of heights. So I would not drive across that bridge without the guardrails, but I don't plan on hitting them. But if they're not there, I'm not driving across that high bridge. Forget it. So you put those guardrails up. It's just there's a comfort in it. And I think that that's a good word picture of, don't be afraid to give your kids guardrails because they thrive within that. And I think that that's what we try to do with our kids is lovingly discipline them so that they have a path forward. So and hang in there too if you're a young dad and you're trying to figure it all out. Hopefully you feel loved by me and other fathers that have gone before you that are trying to do the best they can because it is rewarding in the end. If you just one thing I've shared too is I think it might be good to write a mission statement as a young father of what you're hoping to accomplish and refer back to it. People write a mission statement for businesses. It's common practice. You start a business, they want you to write a mission statement for that business so that you stay on track. I think it'd be helpful to do that as a dad and say, because I remember making all kinds of promises to my kids when they were first born. And time get tough, you run into struggles and I gotta stay true to what I promised here. And I think that would go a long way.
Thank you so much, Rob. It is both an honor and a pleasure to talk to you. I'm glad that you responded. I'm happy and blessed that you responded to my request to be interviewed. We are now connected. And so, if there's anything that I can ever do for you or with you, don't hesitate to call. I am available. Particularly, I have a heart for men who serve. I have a heart for men who follow their callings, their blessings, and their purpose. I have a strong desire to always be available to God's servants, right? And I recognize you as that, and because of that, I always have to have an ear towards being available whenever that time that you need me for whatever reason. So I appreciate everything you are. We will make sure that we share all of your social media handles. Don't expect that your account is going to go up a whole million by being on I Am That podcast. Not at least not yet. It might in the future. And so, but I appreciate you, and we'll be talking because I have a lot of ideas. If you ever need someone with big pinky and the brain ideas, I got them.
I love
And
it. I
so
love it.
we can
I'm glad we're
always.
connected, Ken. I really am. I think this could be a great thing if we can, because I think you have a similar, well, I know you do have a similar outlook on your life and your vision for whatever we can do to, get fatherhood back out as in the spotlight as a good thing, and there's the good that, to try to bring that back. And so if we can partner in any way, I'm all for it. Just want to make sure you know that. And I think you have a lot more connections than I do in that, in areas that, I don't have access to. So yeah, anything I can do that where we could walk alongside each other and include other dads, I'm all for it.
Well, my connections are your connections. And so, to all of my I Am Dad podcast, thank you so much. Our guest today, Rob Kenney, is doing phenomenal work. Check him out on YouTube. Just put it as the young folks said, as the young folks say, Google him. Dad, how do I? He will pop up all over the place. And so, you know how I like to leave you. Always be kind to others as you're kind to yourself, or you might find yourself by yourself. Always shoot high for your goals, because even if you miss, you'll be amongst the stars. And as my good friend and mentor Art Mitchell always said to me, it's nice to be important, but you know what? It's much more important to be nice. Until next Sunday, God bless and peace out.
Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us. You've been listening to I Am Dad Podcast. We hope that you have been informed, encouraged you to think, or even inspired your heart for the love of dads. The conversation does not end here. Come back and join us next week. Same time, same place. Or you can continue the dialogue on our I Am Dad Facebook page. We also invite you to listen to past episodes, learn more about us, and keep up with special activities by visiting IamDadPodcast.com. That's IamDadPodcast.com. Until next time, I leave you with this reminder of manhood from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Because of this reminder, I will always understand that I am Dad, period.